Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty RoundTable Radio Talk Show.
Bobby Kennedy, two females in the Olympics, both Chinese, or is one American? Those are the discussions we'll have here in the next few minutes. You are listening to Liberty Roundtable Live, ladies and gentlemen. Hard-hitting news the networks refuse to use. No doubt starts now. So there's a big deal, and I don't think most people have heard anything about it. You know, everything has to be about Donald Trump, and everything has to be about the war, and, you know, you really can't discuss anything else ever. And that's kind of the sad part, because I believe there's a lot of interesting twists and a lot of interesting news that doesn't ever get covered. And so, you know, I realize war is the hot topic. And Lowell has a bunch of stories about it next hour that we'll be talking about from Ron Paul and Judge Andrew Napolitano and Nisha and John Whitehead and several other great columns that we'll be talking about then. But I wanted to take Dr. Bradley with me and talk about a few other items that are in the news. Part of it has to do with the economy. We'll get to that. A lot of it has to do with some very interesting twists that I find fascinating. You know, Bobby Kennedy started out big time, just doubling down and cranking and letting people go and changing the game and changing the discussions. And I mean, I really applauded what he was doing. And then all of a sudden I didn't hear much about him. And I kind of wonder, you know what, is he still doing what he's supposed to be doing? And, you know, is he still standing tall and doing the best he can? And it's hard to find information on it. But I found a great, interesting twist of a story that it's not perfect, but it's a great, great start. Let's talk about it now. Dr. Bradley, welcome, sir.
Well, thank you very much, Sam. And it might be appropriate to think about the fact that I mean, sometimes I do a this day in history kind of thought. I mean, like we did on
Friday, sure.
Our last show, you know, where we did the fall of the Alamo, you know, on the 6th of March, 1836. Yeah, and we don't need to spend a lot of time on it, but perhaps today is an appropriate day to remember that this day, 1945, was the first day that napalm was used in combat and was dropped on Tokyo. They say 80,000 people died and 1 million were made homeless. It's a absolutely devastating weapon, and with the the footage that's coming out of Iran, where some of the shall we say upgraded kinetic energy is being deployed, and there's a lot of civilians in the middle of this, just like there was in Tokyo. Just, you know, people don't understand.
And it's even widening every single day, where more civilians seem to end up being involved, sad to say. Right now, the United States is mad at Israel because Israel is taking the, bombing wider, and there's oil raining down on cities, oil droplets and stuff like that due to the war. And the United States is concerned because they're destroying some oil capabilities, if you will, or manufacturing, whatever you want to say, processing. And the United States is saying, hey, we're going to need that in the short future here. You got to leave that intact. And now there's a big old bunch of battle about Donald Trump was on an Israel interview on an Israeli news organization, basically saying, hey, me and Benjamin Netanyahu will decide when the war ends. Of course, the buck stops with Donald always, but he'll be deciding that with Benjamin Netanyahu. And I'm thinking, shouldn't he be deciding that with the United States Congress? There's a ton there. The problem is, at least in my opinion, you can't talk about anything but the war, period. You just can't discuss anything, or it's war discussion. And sadly, in America, I think there's a lot of stuff that's happening that we need to know about that's not actually the war.
Well, let's hear about it. Let's hear what we got going.
I know people kind of have a hard time with that because we have to talk about Donald in every sentence, and we have to talk about the war at least in every sentence, if not twice, see? And nothing else can be talked about. But here's the deal. Over 50 top U.S. medical schools have now pledged to require at least 40 hours of nutrition education starting in fall semester 2026. That's according to the Department of Health and Human Services, or DHS. Now, this is Bobby Kennedy's team and clue, right? 40 hours. Now, I don't think that's a whole lot of nutrition education. I don't think it's near enough, but it is a start. And, we've always heard that, oh, man, doctors say we never got any nutrition education. And it's baffling to see how that's possible when we know that the things that you eat and the things that you put into your body have a big, big, big effect on your health. And, medical professionals don't really know much about it. But it's interesting to me that now this is a discussion under Bobby Kennedy. You don't know anything, and all of a sudden this comes out. And I think, wow, some good people are doing something somewhere. They say 53 schools across 31 states, including George Washington University, the University of Wisconsin, Madison, and others, are participating in this initiative. They say this commitment is a result of a collaborative effort between HHS, led by Bobby Kennedy, and the Education Department under Secretary Linda McMahon. Now, I find that another interesting twist. I thought the Education Department under McMahon was going away, but no, now it's partnering to crank up this education in medical schools for physicians. In August 2025, both departments called for significant enhancements in nutritional education at leading medical schools. So August 2025, now we're hearing about it, February 2026? So I don't know what really happened in the last 5 months or plus, but there you go. According to HHS, approximately 75% of U.S. medical schools did not require any nutrition classes in 2024 at all. The U.S. annually spends about $4.4 trillion. Did you hear me? The U.S. annually spends $4.4 trillion on treating chronic diseases alone. This initiative is part of the Make America Healthy Again, or MAHA, championed by Kennedy. And as you know, Kennedy has already pushed to prevent SNAP benefits from being used for junk food and everything else. And so to me, it's a very interesting story that I don't think anybody's getting anything on. Doctor?
Well, this is good news. Let's say it's probably a good start. I mean, I think Kennedy is trying to make... It's good news.
I think more needs to be done, but it's a great start.
I agree. Kennedy is trying to make inroads where he can. He flipped the pyramid chart, and he's got more protein and less sugar and no alcohol and all those kinds of things that he's recommending. But here's where I want to see where this goes. I think if Kennedy has his way, it'll be probably a much upgraded nutrition education. However, I have my deep breath, chew my tongue kind of moment. I still have the son, but when he was going to university, we're very conscious about nutrition and all those kinds of things, and we believe very heavily that kind of you become what you eat. I mean, if you're eating, chemicals and flavorings and all that kind of stuff, it's probably not as good for you as it could be. You get it as close to the original as you can, but some products such as corn and wheat have been modified dramatically in recent years, but that's another conversation. So I don't want to get too far afield. I was going to tell you what happened to my kid. He was doing nutrition and food science degree, and there was this pontificating professor in front of the class, in the last class he attended, actually. And this professor was up saying the most nutritional dense, highest quality, single source of food you can get. I mean, do you get the idea? This is an enthusiastic embracing of something.
It's almost like man-made manna, buddy.
No, here it is. Well, yeah, but that's what you would think it was.
That's what they're
but
saying,
it wasn't.
right?
You know what it was? Apple Jacks cereal.
No, I thought it was Rice Krispies. All right.
No. Just stop for a minute here, Sam. That's chemically flavored with some grain in it, obviously, lots of sugar, and the fact of the matter is that was the statement made in class, and my son said, "I'm done. If I get a degree from this university in nutrition and food science, it's going to be as worthless as a box of Apple Jacks." And what's really amazing to me is a full professor in that department. I've known him for decades. And our friend Kurt that does the Honeyman stuff.
Yeah, Kurt Crosby.
Honey's a pretty good food. It's really good food. I mean,
yeah,
some people call it the ambrosia of the gods or something like that,
Well, and you read about it in the scriptures, honey and milk and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. Well, maybe you let Kurt listen to this. He may say we're really good friends. But at any rate, this guy is absolutely adamant. He was full professor. I mean, he wasn't just an associate professor or an adjunct professor or something like this. This guy was supposed to be a world-renowned professor. He's since retired. He's about my age, maybe a little older. Anyway, he says refined white sugar is nothing whatsoever different from honey. And it's like, that is one of the most ignorant statements I have ever heard. You cannot create honey in the lab. This is something the bees got from God.
I understand. So anyway, I think it's a tremendous, tremendous news piece. I think it's good news, but I have concerns about it, just as the doctor does. First off, where does the government get off mandating what's taught in school by anybody, anywhere, anyway? We'll talk about that and a whole lot more. You're listening to the one and only Liberty Roundtable Live.
You know where the solution can be found, Mr. President? In churches, in wedding chapels, in maternity wards across the country and around the world. More babies will mean forward-looking adults, the sort we need to tackle long-term, large-scale problems. American babies in particular are likely going to be wealthier, better educated, and more conservation-minded than children raised in still industrializing countries. As economist Tyler Cowen recently wrote, quote, "By having more children, you're making your nation more populous, thus boosting its capacity to solve climate change. The planet does not need for us to think globally and act locally so much as it needs us to think family and act personally. The solution to so many of our problems, at all times and in all places, is to fall in love, get married, and have some kids."
Are you ready to stand up for your community and support your local sheriff? Join the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association and become a vital member of the Sheriff's Citizens Posse. At cspoa.org, we empower citizens like you through weekly webinars, arming you with the knowledge to back your constitutional county sheriff. Together, we can uphold our Constitution and ensure liberty and justice for all. Your community needs you now more than ever.
This is a battle between truth and deceit, a battle between forces that would enslave this country in darkness, and between a media that wants to present you with the truth. We are being censored. America's news outlets no longer provide the truth. 90% of news outlets in the United States are controlled by 6 corporations. The mission of the Epoch Times is to chase the truth, to ground all statements in fact.
TheEpochTimes.com. All right, back with you live, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm talking about this. Over 50 top U.S. medical schools now say they're going to have 40 hours of nutrition education. This commitment is a collaborative effort between RFK Jr. and the HHS department and Linda McMahon in the education department. And the U.S. annually spends about $4.4 trillion on treating chronic diseases. So I get that this is a very important issue. But what's interesting to me is whenever you're in government, you always think government is the answer to solve this. You always think the only answer is for more government. Mandates, controls, laws, regulations, spending money, this and that. And, I don't think so. On one hand, I think it's good news if I live in the real. In the real, hey, at least somebody's trying to highlight the fact, which we've mentioned for decades, but the mainstream press and the government hasn't really admitted it. Hey, these people don't get any education in nutrition. So if you're going to your doctor and they don't talk about nutrition or whatever, it's because they don't know anything. They haven't been taught anything about it. They don't even know. And that's a huge, in my opinion, a massive gap in their education, because oftentimes nutritional answers will take you, I don't even have a number, but a significant portion of the way, 50, 60, 70, 80% of the way to solving many or most problems that we have in health. It could decrease the costs. Instead of it being 4.4 plus trillion annually, it could be way less. So I, on one hand, commend Bobby Kennedy and Linda McMahon for doing this, but I do have my concerns that, hey, if the government's at the helm and they mandate this, then what will they mandate the nutrition to be? As Dr. Bradley said before the break, will it be, hey, sugar and honey are the same thing, no big deal, no harm, no foul? Well, if so, they're just going to be having now 40 hours of propaganda nutritional education. And that's really why we need to get rid of the education department, give the government education. The government shouldn't be mandating or deciding what is taught in medical school anywhere. Let that be in the private sector. And the schools that teach about education, in my opinion, will become the top schools because people will realize how valuable. Hey, did you go to a school that teaches nutrition in your educational, repertoire, if you will? I would say that I think that over time, the good schools could be promoted to the top that focused on that, and the bad schools that didn't would be kind of relegated to the bottom that, hey, they don't teach enough of this. I just don't see it best handled in government hands. So anyway, I want to give a big old shout out to them on one hand, and on the other hand, send out my personal caution. Is that okay? Can I do that, Doctor? Can I say that?
Oh, absolutely, if you don't get censored.
Okay.
But here's the deal, my friend. I think that your wisdom is very wise. How does that sound? Anyway, but I think I want to cut Bobby a little grace in this.
I agree,
just
and
for
that's
this
my
reason.
point.
Here's the problem. We have government-directed and or somewhat similar bureaucracies that do academic accreditation for schools.
Yes, sir.
And so there's another involvement that should never be there, but I've been through that a number of times. It's an arduous task as you get all of the naysayers and Grinches come in, and they want to eat your lunch, so to speak, and you've got to toe the line. Like I say, I have been on the front lines of this in academic accreditation for higher universities, institutional academics that has to do with the particular ones I had most of the experience with were research universities. And that's something I think Bobby's trying to work within that system because it's the thing that everybody puts all their blessings on. So let's cut him a little grace. Let's see how it goes. I suspect, as we often find, that it will be less than ideal what comes up.
Well, and it might even start out under Bobby Kennedy being the ideal, and then over time they'll eventually morph and change and regulate it into a bad deal, right?
Absolutely.
But at least we can hope, and again, in the ideal, we wouldn't have government involved in this at all. But in the real, as you've mentioned, Dr. Bradley, it's so involved now, too, to where anything, it's kind of like abstinence in education. It's a perfect example. Sure, I want children to learn about that, and I want them to learn about God's laws and to live morally and understand God's guidance on sexual relationships and things like that. It's better that there's some abstinence being taught, but it would be better to get rid of the whole thing. And if you're not careful, what you do is you grow up a branch of government with your point of view alongside all the other horrible point of views, and then you're begging for your money and they're begging for their money, and the fact is now it's just a big old expenditure that just increases, and your attempts and your desires were legitimate and good and moral, but then eventually over time they backfire because now you'll never get rid of sex education in schools. You'll never get rid of government mandates when it comes to nutrition. It's only whose mandates they're going to follow, and that becomes a great, great concern in and of itself. And that's one of the things that Liberty Roundtable Live takes pride in, Doctor, is being able to try to cover the waterfront, give you the real, give you the ideal, give you the bad news, the good news, with the warnings and the witnesses and all the things that, in my opinion, really relate to true understanding. You can disagree or agree with what we say, but at least hopefully we frame it in a way that you can kind of understand what the concerns are and why. And then when you see some of these things start to come to pass, you'll be like, I see what they were talking about, Anyway, that's our hope on that. Any final on this one?
Well, just what people get, if nothing else, is food for thought. And we have far too little of that going on nowadays. There's a lockstep, institutionalized, accepted belief system that we're being shoehorned in. And that's kind of, and I'm just going to leap to another subject, not just nutrition, but religion. We are fast approaching a globalist religion. And the Antichrist will
and a mandated globalist religion if we're not careful.
Absolutely. You're going to find that the great and abominable Church of the Devil or the beast or whatever your religion calls it, that is where we're going as we have ecumenicism happening throughout the religions of the world. What that is a blending of the religions, and ultimately and finally I suspect that they have a flavor that will look more like the worship of Moloch than an understanding of the mission of Jesus Christ. But we're working towards that. And so here you have institutionalization of everything from our worship to our food to our ability to even question anything. It's just astonishing. So let's keep our liberty if we can.
Amen. And let's keep an eye on the ball, and that's how it's done. We do our very best, folks. And I know some people would say, hey, you guys are just out in the weeds, and what you say is irrelevant, and it's unnecessarily harsh. I understand those things. I also understand that I don't know any better way to deliver it than give you the ideal. Government shouldn't be involved in any of this. But then the real, they are, and good people behind the scenes are trying to do something about it. And if you're not careful and you don't listen to Liberty Roundtable Live, you don't even know that it's happening.
Right? Buddy.
That's even a greater concern, is that you don't even know any of these things are happening. And so we're throwing out a little bit of a kudos there. All right, there's two women. They're both born in China, as far as I understand. They both are living in America. They lived in San Francisco. They're both in the Olympics, and they're both incredibly talented. The first one's Allison Liu, I hope I'm saying it right, and Eileen Gu is the other one. Allison Liu and Eileen Gu. They're both, they say, from the Bay Area. They emerge as top athletes at the Winter Olympics, and now there's constant comparisons about these girls due to their unique backgrounds. Okay? I guess Liu is 20. She secured gold in the women's figure skating. Another in what they call the team event for the U.S. Now, Gu, 22, represents China, winning a gold and 2 silver medals in freestyle skiing. So one's a skater, one's a skier. There's the differences. They both very top, rate athletes, winning gold medals at the Olympics and everything else. But this difference in representation is what I find interesting. With Liu's U.S. allegiance and Gu's choice of Chinese citizenship or Chinese allegiance. So that's the problem. One basically performed for the United States. The other performed for China. They say it's led to polarized views in their, quote, respective countries. In the U.S., some labeled Gu as a traitor. While in China, of course, Liu is often viewed critically as the traitor. Their stories, though, highlight broader themes of nationalism and loyalty in the context of the U.S.-China geopolitical conflict. The controversy relates to ethnic loyalty and identity, how they're treated in both countries, etc. But, Doctor, there's a reason that I'm focusing on this, and it's a reason that nobody else is talking about. And here's my take on this thing. Their dads are very different. Okay, Gu's dad is China, baby, loves China. Liu's dad is a Chinese dissident. And I find that fascinating. And so they're both in America. And, some are saying, hey, you just got to go where you think you have a chance to promote your career. I don't think it's about that. And you can say, well, Sam, this is the Olympics. We're supposed to set all this politics and all these things aside. And my response is, I wish you were right, but it's wishful thinking. Okay, here's the reality in my opinion. This is the very reason, listen carefully to me, ladies and gentlemen, this is the very reason that our founding fathers did not want anybody but a U.S.-born citizen to be president of the United States. Because it really comes down to, and I'm not saying it's true in every case, there's exceptions, I'm sure, but in almost every case, the person, daughter, son, whoever, will side with wherever their father's allegiance lies. And that's why even if you become naturalized or whatever, or you whatever live in San Francisco or whatever you do in the Bay Area or whatever, hey, if your dad's tied to China, you're going to go perform for China. And if your dad's, a dissident of China and for America, then you're going to go for America. But you never can tell where the father's allegiance really is. When we get back, I want to have Dr. Bradley break this down because no one's talking about this, but this makes the point better than any story in modern times I've ever seen because it highlights it so clearly in something that's not even supposed to be political. But if it's that way when it's not political or when it's not relating to the president, how big time does it relate when it is? That's the question. We'll talk about it with Dr. Bradley in seconds on your radio.
Pursuing liberty, using the Constitution as our guide. You're listening to Liberty News Radio.
Breaking news this hour from Town Hall. I'm Rich Thomason. The U.S. and Israel have a potential new target in their war with Iran. The country now has a new supreme leader, replacing the previous one, assassinated by Israel.
The son who worked for decades in the shadow of his father has assumed his mantle in his conservative mold. Mujtaba Khamenei is also closely linked to Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards, the powerful paramilitary force he joined straight out of high school before studying with senior clerics. Iran's clerics and commanders are now fighting an existential battle, and the real power calling the shots is the hardline Revolutionary Guards. The new Khamenei sends a message of defiance to President Trump, who called him unacceptable, and to Israel, who's vowed to kill him too.
The BBC's Lise Doucette. New York City's police commissioner says 2 explosive devices were thrown during dueling protests outside the mayor's official residence, Gracie Mansion, over the weekend, being investigated as an ISIS-inspired act. The Democrats' refusal to fund the Department of Homeland Security taking a toll at some airports, big delays over the weekend.
And it wasn't necessarily because of the war in the Middle East. 2 biggest problems, Houston and New Orleans, where travelers complained of long waits, in some cases lasting hours, at various security checkpoints. Officials blamed the long waits on the government shutdown of the Department of Homeland Security. The estimated wait time at the standard security checkpoint at Hobby Airport in Houston early Sunday evening was just over 3 hours. And officials say part of the problem, college kids on spring break. Jason Walker reporting.
On Wall Street, the Dow down 694 points. The Nasdaq is off 268. More on these stories, townhall.com.
Hi, Mike Gallagher here, host of the Mike Gallagher Show. As we head into spring, there's some good news in the housing market. Rates have recently dropped. When rates drop, payments can drop. That can mean hundreds of dollars a month back in your pocket, money you can use to pay bills, reduce debt, or strengthen your financial position. That's why this is the time to talk to my friends at Fellowship Home Loans. They're helping homeowners refinance into lower rates and reduce their monthly mortgage payments. Fellowship also offers a fixed rate line of credit for home projects or consolidating a high interest debt with fast approval and a predictable rate. Remember, many people still qualify to skip their next 2 mortgage payments. That's 2 months of breathing room while you reposition financially. I've used Fellowship personally. I trust these guys. Before you make your next move, go to fellowshiphomeloans.com/Mike G, fellowshiphomeloans.com/Mike G, or call 800-510-MIKE, 800-510-MIKE. Fellowship Home Loans, mortgage lending by the book.
Nationwide Mortgage Bankers, DBA Fellowship Home Loans, Equal Housing Lender, NMLS number 819382.
Looking for an IT partner that truly understands your needs? Managed IT Services is the answer. We meet with you regularly to discuss your goals and form a tailored technology plan. Our customers have called us a trusted advisor who delivers. When it comes to IT, we do it all. Firewalls, cloud storage, server migration, and more. Say goodbye to long-term contracts and hello to a team that earns your business month after month. Call 801-706-6980 now and let Managed IT Services transform your IT experience.
Have you ever had great honey? No, I mean really good, all-natural, raw honey? Well, now you can, thanks to localhoneyman.com. We can ship out our locally made honey all across the U.S. So don't worry, you won't miss out. Plus, Local Honeyman has so many different flavors, like Utah Wildflower, High Desert Delight, Happy Valley, and Blackberry, just to name a few. So purchase your delicious raw honey today at localhoneyman.com.
The Foundation for Moral Law is a nonprofit legal foundation committed to protecting our unalienable right to publicly acknowledge God. The Foundation for Moral Law exists to restore the knowledge of God in law and government and to acknowledge and defend the truth that man is endowed with rights not by our fellow man, but by God. The Foundation maintains a twofold focus. First, litigation within state and federal courts. Second, education, conducting seminars to teach the necessity and importance of acknowledging God in law and government. How can you help? please make a tax-deductible contribution, allowing foundation attorneys to continue the fight. You may also purchase various foundation products as well at morallaw.org. Located in Montgomery, Alabama, the Foundation for Moral Law is a nonprofit, tax-exempt 501c3 founded by Judge Roy Moore. Please partner with us to achieve this important mission. morallaw.org.
Okay, brings up a magnificent challenge that we face in modern America, and it's been tempered by a new term called birthright citizenship. But the American Founding Fathers used Vattel, his Law of Nations dissertation, that is absolutely their intention for what a natural-born citizen is. In order to be of the country, it is necessary, I'm quoting from Vattel, that a person be born of a father who is a citizen. For if he be born there of a foreigner, it will be only the place of his birth and not his country. Now, there's pages of Vattel's work here, and time is short here, but the fact of the matter is, this divided loyalty has been a big problem from the very beginning, and it's exacerbated by the Plyler v. Doe case, which is, birthright citizen non-cip, where a non-citizen parentage comes into the country and they have a baby, and suddenly the baby's a citizen, and they're calling that. Kamala Harris didn't qualify. Certainly, there's question about Ted Cruz. There's question about Marco Rubio, about their natural-born citizenship. But the fact of the matter is, this goes certainly contrary to the American Founding Fathers' perspective of natural-born citizenship and the presidency, but I would submit that it even goes deeper than that, because we have many people that have dual citizenship, and a lot of those people hold office. You might be in the Congress, you might be in the Senate, you might be in your own, local community with dual citizenship, and this idea of being able to serve two masters becomes very problematic when it comes to taking care of preserving this nation. And so there are many people, and some of them have been very, very, shall we say, public about it, in that they seek dual citizenship, and other people obtain it quietly.
And to me, I don't think we should allow dual citizenship in the United States at all. I think one of the requirements to be a citizen, naturalized, or whatever else, would be that you denounce all other citizenships. Are you really going to be loyal to the United States and commit to it? That doesn't mean it'll guarantee it, but when you have these dual citizenships, I think it's problematic to say the least. But the main point of this story is that this, issue in the Olympics, and this is where they don't really write about this because they don't want you to understand this in detail in modern times. But in their effort to highlight this Lou and Gu example of these two women, they inadvertently highlight the point that the founders made, and that's why I wanted to draw attention to it today. You've got a modern story that highlights that their stories highlight broader themes of nationalism and loyalty in the context of the U.S.-China geopolitical conflict. Hey, the child is going to 9 times out of 10 side with where the father's loyalties lie. It's that simple, and the founders knew it. They highlighted it, they talked about it, and they were concerned about it. And in modern times, we seem to jettison that as if it doesn't matter. But it absolutely matters. And if it doesn't matter in big stake things like leading the country, loyalty to America, if you get classified information as commander-in-chief or a congressman or senator or some high office, and you get intel that could be, given to the wrong people, et cetera, et cetera. If it matters in the Olympics, which is just a sport, they're skiing and ice skating is all they're doing. I'm not minimizing that. I'm just saying if it's that big of a deal in this story in modern times when it comes to that, it's a much bigger deal when it comes to things of national import, Doctor.
Divided loyalty is a huge problem in the nation today, and it used to be exactly what you stated. The Founding Fathers said you must renounce all previous alignments, loyalties, to prince, potentate, philosophy, everything. It was absolutely a requirement if you became. Now, see, for example, if you look in the Constitution, you can see that the Senate and the House can be, born elsewhere and become citizens. In the Senate, you got to be 30 years old and 9 years a citizen And in the House, you got to be 25 years old and 7 years a citizen. But their original oath of citizenship was a renunciation of all previous loyalties completely. You cannot, at least in the Founding Fathers approach, you could not maintain dual citizenship. You could not be dividing your loyalty. And today, we have people in very high places in this nation that certainly are not natural-born citizens and certainly have not ultimately become citizens through the process since their parentage were not citizens. And certainly there are those that continue to pick up other citizenships for other foreign powers, and you wonder, what the heck? I mean, how can we even trust those people? That should not be allowed at all. Yeah, you can keep your favorite meal from your home country or whatever. You can wear your, the shoes you want, or whatever they're from your country. If you're Dutch and you want to wear, wooden shoes, whatever, who cares? But your citizenship and your loyalty, we must be able to be certain of that. And we are not at this point.
We are not at all. And that's really where the problem lies. And that's why America is becoming more and more divided. And that division, sadly, I believe, is going to be exposed more and more over time. And this Lou and Goose story is one simple example to make the point, but I believe it's a very poignant example. And what I find is the mainstream press doesn't report on certain things intentionally, but what you do if you watch them carefully, and that's why I watch the mainstream press, by the way, if you watch them carefully, they inadvertently expose facts that are valuable when they don't intend to. So another quick example to make the point. On one hand, they said when it was 2,000 mules and Catherine Engelbrecht and Greg and those guys from True the Vote and Dinesh D'Souza put out that movie, and they said, look, we can see where how often you're going to these voting bins and throwing ballots in there by your cell phone data. And they mocked it till the cows came home, said, oh, that can't be, that isn't true, that's bogus, it doesn't work like that. And then about a month later in the news, they came out with an article. They said, we finally caught this criminal. And the way they did it was they used cell phone, geofencing data and cell phone information to locate the, proximity of the criminal to the crime and this and that. And they literally inadvertently laid out the very fact that, no, it is true. It does work. And they lied. And so this is another example where they're just talking about innocently about the Olympics and highlighting the differences in these two women. But at the same time, they're exposing this greater issue, which is, hey, the loyalty goes with the father 9 times out of 10, and you better be very, very, very careful about that. And that's true within all of our ranks of government. And it was most stringent for commander-in-chief, but the point was true in the founding era day across the board. And that's why even for a congressman or a senator, you've got to have citizenship and enough loyalty to the United States, 7 years, 9 years, certain age respectively, in hopes that you would eventually understand America and embrace American values. And they didn't want to be so hostile that nobody else had a chance if you came to this country, but they wanted to be very, very, very careful about allegiances. And so this story inadvertently highlights that reality check, and I thought I'd bring that side of the story to the table. Now the U.S. economy lost... Yes, sir?
Just a second. Before we leave that, I want to go back and quote what it actually said in the 1795 Naturalization Act.
Here it
One
is.
seeking citizenship must, quote, renounce forever all allegiance and fidelity to any foreign prince, potentate, state, or sovereignty, whatever, and particularly by name, the prince, potentate, state, or sovereignty, whereof such alien may at the time be a citizen or subject, end quote. That's exactly what it said in the Naturalization Act, hearkening back to the American Founding Fathers. They absolutely did not want divided loyalties. And so
You're right about
we
that.
have triple.
And today we simply act like those old founders are clueless. They don't really know. They're not in the up times. They're, a bunch of old farmers that weren't very educated, and how wrong we are when we think that as well. They understood it. They highlighted it. And I wanted to bring it up in modern times because whenever I see stories that inadvertently bring out facts that are, in my opinion, very important or poignant for the discussions today, what a better way to highlight this than through this Olympic story. What a better way to highlight that cell phone data does document where people are. That article that I quoted a couple of weeks after that highlighted that. It's important to watch the mainstream press because they inadvertently release facts and details and double down on things that absolutely matter. Most of the time, it's they want to make another point, but in that broader point, you capture these poignant points if you watch carefully and if you're very savvy when they emerge. So that's one of the things we do is we keep an eye on the news and do our best to bring it to the table in legitimate ways that matter for us. All right, it looks like there's 92,000 jobs lost in February as employers dealt with tariff-related pressures, inflation pressures, geopolitical uncertainty. It just goes on and on according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Despite predictions of a job increase, they thought it was going to be about 60,000, but it turns out they lost 92,000. I mean, that's a massive difference, folks. The unemployment rate then increased to 4.4%, which I don't even buy that number, by the way. Last year at this time, it was 4.1%, so it's slowly but surely ticking up. A report by Challenger, Gray, and Christmas said that there's a 72% decrease in job cuts since last year, so that's the good news. When we get back, I want to break this down a little bit more because economically, the Republicans are in trouble for the midterms. We'll talk about it.
As you are aware, America is divided over every fault line possible. This is intentionally fostered by those who do not love God, family, or country. We believe a peaceful future as a free people absolutely depends on civility. Clarion Call for Civility is looking for funding and volunteers at every level to make our hopes and efforts a reality. Please donate, sign our pledge, and help us in our sacred cause. Please visit callforcivility.com for more details. Callforcivility.com.
Introducing Managed IT Services from NPI. We offer top-notch data backup and recovery, email spam protection, and network security tailored to your needs and budget. With 20-plus years of experience in the medical field, our HIPAA-certified consultants know what it takes to protect sensitive information. Don't settle for less. Give us a call at 801-706-6980 and experience the difference with Managed IT Services. Remember, your IT support should be fast, efficient, and reliable.
I'm Dave. I'm 7 years old. I'm sitting here in the corner having a time out until Mom comes to talk to me. All I did was cut my sister's hair. I was just trying to help. I guess Mom didn't like how I did it. In a minute, she'll be back and ask me if I know what I did was wrong. Maybe I shouldn't have cut her hair. And she'll say we all make mistakes because we're just learning about stuff. And she'll give me a hug and we'll end up talking about more stuff.
No matter what you talk to your kids about, love is what they'll hear.
I really like Mom's timeouts, and I think she likes them too. Yeah, I think they help her remember how much she loves me.
A thought from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Visit us at Mormon.org.
All right, back with you live. So we lost 92,000 jobs. We thought it was going to be a positive of about 60,000. The unemployment rate increased to 4.4% from January's 4.3 and from last year's 4.1. So unemployment ticking up. The Bureau of Labor Statistics revised the job numbers, indicating significant errors in original or initial reports. And this is the part that I want to get to. For example, they say in June, initial reports of 147,000 new jobs were eventually revised to a loss of 20,000 jobs. December said 48,000 gain, but it turned out that it was a 17,000 loss. These changes, along with data from previous years, reveal an overstatement of nearly 1 million jobs in the last 2 years. Do you read me, ladies and gentlemen? They told you that we gained 1 million jobs over the last 2 years, but it wasn't true. It wasn't true at all. So now you got to ask yourself, are they really making mistakes, or are they doing it on purpose? That's a fair question, I think. But economists are concerned about these revisions, suggesting a potential erosion in data quality. Maybe, or maybe they're doing it on purpose. Additionally, other economic measures, such as inflation, and consumer spending also are starting to have large revisions in their data numbers. While U.S. government data, they say generally, is reliable, hey, the continued revisions make people question the government's gold standard, they say. They say that the data is crucial for policymakers and forecasters, impacting decisions at the Federal Reserve and beyond. Anyway, they say they've tried blending new data sources to improve accuracy, but the problem is they've got budget restraints. Don't you know everybody's on a budget? You know, they're spending more money than we've ever spent before on government, but yet they're on a budget crunch. And so anyway, my whole take on this is this. I don't think we need a government gold standard in the first place. I don't know that we need government tracking these numbers anyway. Okay? And you say, well, the Federal Reserve depends on it. Well, shut down the Federal Reserve then. I mean, one government line item or entity begets more bad government when it's unconstitutional. Look, the private sector, Challenger Gray, Christmas, all kinds of employment organizations, they can track this information for us in the private sector just fine. We don't need government to do it. And, you know, I don't even know if they've lost their gold standard and it's really, they don't have the right data, so they can't predict. I don't know if the government is being told to manipulate this per the leadership in America that want to make you believe that, the economy is good under their leadership or whatever else. I don't know. But I know this. The fact is, this idea that we think that government needs to gather this information is bogus. And if you say, Sam, it's vital, got to have it. Where in the Constitution does it call for that under the general government responsibility? The answer is it doesn't exist. Doctor?
Well, Sam, I think you're being very generous in your assessment as always to try and keep an open mind, but I'll tell you how jaded and cynical I've become. I think they're cooking the books. And
well, I think there's some truth to that too, but at the same time, I want people to understand. I don't want them to get lost on whether part of the reason that I give people benefit of the doubt or I frame things the way I do is because I don't want them to focus on whether we're cooking the books or not. What I want them to focus on is where in the Constitution is the government supposed to do this in the first place? So a lot of times it's a matter of, that's right. And so what I don't want to do is get bogged down in a debate whether they're cooking the books or not. Or, what I want to do is focus on the fact that it ought to not be done anyway because there's no authority to do it, period. That's the bottom line.
Yep. And it's just, like I say, it's sad that personal loyalty to a certain philosophy is the measurement that is, I think, at the forefront of today. I mean, if you have a falling out and let's just say, for example, let's just use the example, Bobby Kennedy and his effort to get glyphosate from our food services and the president's executive order that requires it to be there. Okay. I mean, this stuff, Bobby Kennedy's out there blowing on embers that will give us a better, nutritional, make America healthy again. And there's a counterproductive thing. And to me, that I can't hardly believe that Trump is not taking such an offensive position about that. He actually put out an executive order protecting that chemical being put in our food storage. It's just astounding. It's in every cereal box. It's in every time you eat a piece of bread. I mean, it's in the any concept. You eat a corn on the cob in the middle of summer with your friends and family.
You're right, and what President Trump would say is he had to do that for security reasons.
And I could talk to that at great length. By the way, Kennedy has responded a little bit, not in your face, Donald Trump. He's a very diplomatic. He's a very statesman-like kind of guy, and that he says we're going to encourage by giving incentives for people to merge away from these poisons. Now to me, it's like, okay, the government shouldn't be paying you to not grow poison, okay? But he's trying to work within a very polluted system.
Well, and he's tried to also give people a way out over time, which I think is important as well. By the way, the price of the gallon of gas has gone through the roof. It's gone up big time, and every day I want to mention a number, it goes up, but I know this oil is above $100 a barrel. U.S. crude oil basically spiking out of control. And anyway, all I can say is this, diesel is way up, and the average person might say, well, that's okay, I don't use diesel. Yeah, but everything you buy needs diesel to get to you, whether it be via trains, whether it be via trucks. Diesel is what basically, engineers the supply chain in the United States for sure.
Well, I'll tell you what, my vehicle drinks diesel, and I have never seen it at the skyrocket. Diesel's the first one affected. I guarantee that gasoline will follow too. And is it directly related to the jitters that are had in the world oil market? Absolutely, my friend. And where did that come from? Absolutely. People need to start connecting the dots. And I didn't even drive my diesel yesterday because it's like, man, I can't believe where the prices have gone. And so when you're paying 60, 70, 80 cents a gallon, 90 cents a gallon more than you were a month ago, that's bad. That's bad. And like you say, Sam, everything that comes to your dinner table, your carpets, your anything, if you have a favorite trinket that comes in by a diesel truck or train, it absolutely does. So
and it needs diesel to fuel those things. And so President Trump says it's a small price to pay for liberty. And, he's tying it to that, hey, this is a freedom play. And he says it'll be short-lived. As soon as we break the blockade at the Strait of Hormuz or whatever it is, then things will get better. And now that we're tying in with Venezuela and Cuba, pretty soon we'll have oil and it'll be great. And it's a temporary thing. I pray it's a temporary thing because Americans can't afford it. But at the same time, I wonder how bad it's going to get and how long it's going to be, Doctor.
Well, none of us have a crystal ball, but the reality of it is right now, here's the bottom line. The Republicans are going to get their butts handed to them on a platter, I'm afraid, and that's maybe okay. But there'll be big changes if that happens in the midterm elections and almost certainly in the presidential elections. And what has happened, and we predicted this right from the very get-go, virtually all presidents in their second term in the last century and a half have been getting wrapped up in international affairs during their second term. And they take the eye off the ball. I mean, if you're standing up at the plate playing baseball, using a sports analogy, and you quit looking at the ball and you're watching the top-tier deck in the stadium all the time, you're not going to get any home runs. You're not going to get any runs batted in. You're not going to get a base hit because you're not even watching what's coming at you. And that's where we are right now in the United States. They've taken their eye off the ball. Now, by the way, this America Shield thing that Kristi Noem got put on last Saturday, we talked about this last time we got together. I think that's Security and Prosperity Partnership light, and it will metastasize into a global regional government. So regional governments are in the charter of the United Nations. NATO is one, CETO, CENTO, SANTO. I mean, the United Nations.
Well, and every one of them are sovereignty violating is the point that we need to make from a constitutional perspective.
They are, unquestionably. So this new program of all of these, it's security and prosperity partnership light that will metastasize. I guarantee you watch it, you heard it here first, folks.
It's always one of those things where I pray Dr. Bradley's wrong because it won't be good for America, but I predict he's correct on this thing, folks. And, the sad part is I wish it weren't so. And I'm not here to attack anybody, President Trump or anybody else, but I am here to highlight these principles that every time we, chip away at our sovereignty, it doesn't go well because these things are, as you can see, President Trump's tried to back out of a lot of things. And they're so convoluted and so I don't even know what term to use, but intertwined, that President Trump, everything he's even tried to back out of has kind of backfired. The courts have handed him his head on it a lot of times. The finances, we cut the budget for this, then they bring back that. We cut employees for this. They have a way to bring back the employees for that. And, most of the things that President Trump has tried to unwind, and I'm defending President Trump in a lot of this, it's turned out that he's not able to do it because it's too complex and too intertwined. And that's what I fear when it comes to international relationships. We need to avoid foreign entanglements, folks. Our sovereignty is at stake. Dr. Bradley, thank you, sir.
Well, I'm always glad to visit these beginning of the week kind of conversations.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, freedomsrisingsun.com for Dr. Scott Bradley. For me, it's libertynewsradio.com. I'm Sam Bushman. God save the Republic of the United States of America.